So basically, this is why we're having this webinar today. It's part of our efforts to meet the entrepreneurs that we are training and those who may be interested halfway in terms of knowing how to navigate the business landscape and other key aspects of their entrepreneurship journey. So today we have one of the respected and admired advocates. He's a corporate lawyer who is going to be talking to us about legal practices. As an entrepreneur, we're going to be delving into how you, as an entrepreneur, can navigate the landscape that is very diverse and sometimes even challenging. We have with us today Advocate Donny Ntsiki. He's a seasoned legal professional. Advocate Ntsiki brings about a decade of multifaceted experience spanning litigation, law, compliance, corporate governance, and legal education. So after graduating with an LLB from the National University of Lesotho, he embarked on a career that blends legal acumen with entrepreneurial spirit. Advocate Ntsiki has worked extensively in both civil and criminal litigation, advised on compliance and governance frameworks, and served as a corporate secretary and compliance officer. He's currently a legal consultant at Elegal Solutions, Inc., where he supports businesses navigating regulatory and governance challenges. An avid educator with his own initiative called Molao le Kgwebo. He regularly contributes to legal workshops, mainly Molao le Kgwebo and other events, sharing practical insights on navigating Lesotho's evolving business environment. Without any waste of time, ladies and gentlemen, let's allow me to hand over to Advocate Ntsiki. How are you, sir?
Thank you, Ndale Chris, for the wonderful introduction. At some point, I couldn't even figure out who you were talking about. It sounded as if it's not someone I didn't know entirely.
It's all in the experience.
Yeah. And whenever you're still working in this path of life and professionally, you never realize how much you built and gone through. So I really appreciate when someone really introduces me like this. It says to me that keep moving, dog. You're doing well.
All right, over to you, sir.
And thank you very much, sir. I also would like to take this opportunity to welcome everyone on board, and thank you for coming through to engage with me in this, what I believe will be a very insightful engagement. And like the Chris said, I'm Advocate Donny Ntsiki. And I've also recently gone by the name of top lawyer. And that mainly comes from the fact that I just like speaking positively about myself. So I believe one day I'll be considered among the greats in our profession as well as in this country. So, ladies and gentlemen, in the next hour or so, we are going to walk hand in hand through the legal aspects and steps, as well as decisions that you have to take in order to launch and run a compliant, protected, and what I believe at the end will be a sustainable business. So I'm going to share my screen now in order for us to move together. Is it visible? Please confirm just reactions.
All good, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Chris. So we've gone through the introductions already, but mainly the objective of this session is to empower startup entrepreneurs with legal knowledge to build sustainable and compliant businesses. And I believe this session will not only be relevant for startup entrepreneurs, but it will also be relevant for people who are already employed in businesses, as well as the general public, in order for them to know what their input could be in order to help or assist the companies or businesses they work for to build sustainability and ensure that the businesses they work for are compliant. Because the law isn't catered for business owners only. It's catered for everyone, or the ecosystem in general, as well as the stakeholders related to that particular business. So there are very multiple reasons as to why legal essentials in businesses matter. And in my experience, I've learned that businesses in Lesotho either lack knowledge of the legal aspect of operating a business, or are not fully knowledgeable. And that is where we came in as Elegal Solutions, in order to bridge the knowledge gap between the law and its consumers or objects. So legal essentials in business help us in order to avoid several legal risks, as well as operational compliance and business risks. Because when you've covered all your legal tracks, you are able to ensure that nothing can be able to come through, penetrate your business, or even end up making suffer losses whatsoever. And one of the consequences of non-compliance, or for us not being legal abiding corporate citizens, usually is that we get penalized by the regulators. And most of our businesses operate in heavily regulated industries. And that is where you find that the law will have several provisions, or even be governed by a multiple number of laws, ranging from registration, licensing, operations, as well as other related business activities. So if we are not compliant, it brings a number of consequences, which would end up placing us in dire circumstances. And one of the benefits also of building, of making sure that we comply with the law, or take into consideration the legal aspects or essentials of running a business, is that we are able to build investor confidence. When investors approach your company or your business, and there are several risks, which could be legal or otherwise, such investors wouldn't even take a moment to consider your business or consider it to be investor with. But when you have a business that has managed its risks, as far as compliance is concerned, operations is concerned, and other areas of the business, you find that investors are more comfortable with such businesses. And the customers are also not left out of this. Customers as well have confidence or trust in businesses that they know that they can be able to be with them tomorrow, and which are not, as we normally say, fly by night. So we have to know that this business is formally registered. I can find it at a certain address, which has been registered with the OBFC, and that says I know that I can trust these people. They cannot be someone that tomorrow can just vanish without me knowing where to find them. And that is the problem with most informal businesses. So on top of everything else, what we want to achieve at the end of the day, for when we talk about legal essentials or legal aspects of business, we want to create a strong foundation for our businesses, because businesses which do not have the right or strong legal foundation, they are not easily sustainable. And we will see as we go through today's discussions why I'm saying this. So may we move on to the next slide? I have already talked much about registration and formalization. It's important for us to start there because that is where the foundation is. We have to make sure that in order for us to operate, we have to choose the right business structure. And we have a number of business structures in Lesotho, but for today's discussion, I'd like us to focus on sole proprietorship, private companies, and partnerships. In Lesotho, sole proprietors are quite easy to register. They are registered at the OPFC, One-Stop Business Facilitation Center, which is a branch within the Ministry of Trade. So, as the name says, sole proprietor, it's owned by one person. And the difference between sole proprietor as well as a company is that the sole proprietor doesn't have limited liability element or aspect, which a company does. A company in its nature is different from, or it's distinct from the owner or the shareholder because they are two different people. That is why we have a term that we refer to companies as juristic persons. We say they're juristic persons because they're legal persons who are able to enter into agreements, who are able to sue and be sued, who are able to act in their own capacity, separate from their founders or the shareholders. So we also have another form of business, which is partnership. And partnership is constituted by 2 up to 20 people in Lesotho. So we cannot have a partnership of over 20 people. That is not allowed. And partnerships similar to sole proprietor enterprises, they are also not distinct from their owners as much as we consider them to be juristic persons, but they are not distinct from their owners. If one partner pulls out, the rest of the partnership goes away unless they reconvene to set up a new partnership entirely. So that is some of the nitty-gritties concerning these 3 forms of businesses which we find in Lesotho. And these are more relevant to start-up entrepreneurs more than anyone else, because we also have other forms of businesses such as societies, non-governmental organizations, public companies, but they are not relevant for this particular topic for today. And in order for us to be able to say we are fully registered or formalized, we have to ensure that we have a certificate of incorporation. We also have to ensure that we have our licenses, trade licenses or business ID. What I'm trying to say is one cannot exist and the company cannot say it's formally registered or operational without it having both of those documents. That is a certificate of incorporation as well as the license to trade. You cannot own a bank account without a trader's license or business ID. You cannot formally or legally trade without such a document. And I've tried to clarify this for several people because people tend to believe that registration, which is the first step, is the last step. And we tend to miss that in order for to give life to the certificate of incorporation, your business ID or your trader's license has to also be there in your hand. So you cannot entirely say you are an existing company without those documents. And there are also additional documents that you need, and that is one of the important documents, which is the tax clearance. What that basically means is that, in simple words, you are cleared with the taxman. Taxman doesn't have anything on you. So as a new business, you just have to register your new account with RSL, and then you start after a year in operation, you then have to file your annual tax returns accordingly. So the importance of a business ID or license I've already touched on, but in summary, those two documents make up the company. So they also give you an opportunity to approach several people or even landlords in order for you to say you are going to have a registered place of business. A landlord will require those documents and you have to produce them. Otherwise, some may even end up denying you an operating space in their premises. Once you have established your company or even formalized it, registration as well as obtaining a business ID or trading license, then you have a name. The company will have its name to be Elegal Ntsiki Pty Ltd, or if it's a sole trader, it will be Elegal Ntsiki Trading as XYZ. Or if it's a partnership, it will be Tapelo and Donald Partnership. So those are business names, but those business names do not give you exclusive rights over them. I can have Tapelo Ntsiki without even it being related to me. It could be a business, it could be a football club, you name it. But once you want to own exclusively that particular name, then you'd have to say, okay, what do I do? And that is where we talk about trademarks. Trademarks are very important for us to protect our slogans, our logos, and the unique names. Could be the business names or even product names. So in Lesotho, we register our trademarks with the Ministry of Law and Constitutional Affairs, Mane Law Office, under the Industrial Property Office. So what it does is that it protects or gives you exclusive use of that name or exclusive use of that logo or sign or special mark. So I'll just make an example of our special name or phrase, the Molao le Kgwebo phrase. According to how we had built up our name, as well as the credibility, the goodwill, that is related to the name, we decided we have to own exclusive use of this phrase, the Molao phrase. And we approached the law office in order for us to register trademark protection of the name. So you too can be able to take your logo, your special name, your special mark to the law office for protection. And all those add up to protection of your brand. Because like I said, as you already exist as a company, you have a name, you have a brand. And this brand has to be protected. And the aim is for us to be sustainable. So you cannot attain sustainability if your brand will be used by many other people without you exclusively owning such a brand. So that's one of the important aspects of protecting your brand through a trademark. So once you are fully registered, you have also protected what you believe is your brand that will stand out as something that distinguishes you from the rest. Then you get into your operation. When you operate your business, you have to have several resources that you may use. For your business to be operational, you may find yourself having to have investors. You may find yourself having to partner with other people in order to ensure that your operations run smoothly. You may also have to involve human resource in order to help you to make sure that your operations are functional. And that is where we talk about employment or labor-related issues. So whenever you form all these relationships, you have to ensure that you draft solid contracts. And by a solid contract, I do not only mean a verbal or written contract. I always prefer us to talk about more about the written contracts more than the verbal contracts, because verbal contracts are a bit problematic. You find that they present us with difficult situations, the he said, she said, whenever issues arise. But when we have written contracts, we are able to have a reference to which we can point to say, okay, on this particular date, Tapelo, you came to me and asked for 10,000 Maluti for investment. And then you said you'd pay me the 10,000 Maluti and your return on investment after 2 years. And the 2 years have elapsed. So what do you say? Where we just use, where we may have entered into a verbal agreement, it's hard for us to prove that Tapelo indeed promised to pay the investment as well as its return after 2 years. But when you have a document in black and white, it's used as a reference to prove that indeed this is what Tapelo agreed to be bound by. So when we draft our agreements, we have to ensure that they cover all the aspects that are essential to meet a valid legal contract. And I must also indicate that legal contracts or commercial contracts are not similar to the day-to-day agreements that we make with our friends, with our partners that are buying chocolate later. That promise and agreement cannot be enforceable before courts of law. But this particular contracts or agreements are enforceable before courts of law in order to say you promised to perform, but you failed to perform. So that is where you have to hold that particular person accountable to what they say they will do inside the agreement. So in our agreement, we have to ensure that we clarify who the parties are. We also have to clarify the scope of the agreement. That is where we bring in the element of the meeting of minds, in order to say Thapelo promised that he will pay. Thapelo demanded from A 10K Malut for investment. A agreed to provide Thapelo with the required amount, and the parties have agreed as follows. So that is where we define the scope. We also have to cover that aspect, that there has been a meeting of minds, or these people have mutual understanding of what they are agreeing to. And that is one of the important parts of the written agreement. And then we have another part, which could be some people name it consideration. I just said it's payment so that you may be able to understand what that means. Consideration is the mutual exchange of benefits within the contract. Thapelo wants 10K Maluti for investment from Party A. Party A has the 10K Maluti to give to Thapelo. And what is the consideration in this particular case? It is the 10K Maluti. And that is what these parties exchange in order for them to benefit both out of this agreement. What Thapelo will gain or benefit is the investment. And what Party A will gain as well is his principal amount as well as the return on investment. So that is where we have to make sure that we clarify clearly in unambiguous terms and without any uncertainty what the parties have to gain out of their relationship. And we also have, among other important clauses of the contract, we also have an important one, which is a dispute resolution clause. Not that we enter into contracts to exit due to a dispute, but we have to cater for instances where these parties may find themselves entangled in a dispute over any aspect of the contract. So the dispute resolution clause says to us, when such an instance arises, what are the parties going? Or the parties will just shoot and then go to court, or even sometimes will they even consider a boxing match. So the dispute resolution clause gives us those steps to follow in order for us to resolve the disputes that may arise. And how I like to follow logic is, I always prefer to start my contracts on this clause with allowing the parties to negotiate in good faith. Give them an opportunity to negotiate. If that fails, then you may involve a mediator. You may then proceed to arbitration, or even when all that fails, then you will proceed to a court of law for redress. Because I believe some of the issues, when they arise, they do not necessarily require us to go to court. And that is where we even try to promote alternative dispute resolution mechanisms besides the formal court processes. I'm going to share, due to time constraints, I'm not going to share a sample structure of the contract, but after this session, I will share all the samples and other documents thereafter. So I would like to move on to the next slide. I hope you are still following and I'm not rushing, and I'm still audible. So the next slide.
You are good. You are good, sir. You are good. Thank you.
Awesome. The next slide concerns compliance. Like I said initially, businesses are legal persons. So similar to you and I as natural persons, the businesses as well has to ensure that it's a legal, it's a law-abiding corporate citizen. That is why we have to make sure that our businesses are compliant with all the laws that govern them. So some of the basic laws that govern businesses are, like I highlighted earlier, tax laws. As we operate our businesses, we know that we have to make sure that we pay what we receive, part of our revenue, to the tax man. And off the record, I find it quite unfair, but we have no other option, because the taxes that we pay to the taxmen are very important in assisting the country to grow, the country to improve its infrastructure, and many other benefits of us paying the tax. As much as it's not something we can smile about, but looking at the bigger picture, it's worth it. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are even within our filing season. Let's make sure that we comply with the tax regulations accordingly. We also have other regulations or laws concerning how we handle our labor force for us to effectively manage or exist in harmony with our employees, our workers. We have to make sure that we are compliant with the labor laws, and that is where we have to draft contracts which are in line with the labor laws and regulations. We have to ensure that we pay people according to the minimum wage or the law concerning wages in the Lesotho. We have to ensure that whenever we terminate our relations, we terminate our relations in accordance with the law. Because whenever we fail to comply, then we already know that there will be serious consequences, which might even affect the reputation of our businesses. The very same name that we are trying to protect, the very same goodwill that we want to keep sustainable throughout our existence might be harmed by us not being compliant with the law. No person wants to work for a company that is always dragged before the DDPR or labor courts. So you want your company to be a company that people would say would aspire to work there, work hard to keep the job. Where we work, the rule of law is upheld at all costs. So besides labor laws, we also have social security laws, although in Lesotho there is no other jurisdictions. In Lesotho we have pieces here and there which concern issues of social security, like your pension laws, like your workmen's compensation laws. Those help you to ensure that your human capital is protected according to the law, and you are able to also guarantee life to your human resource, when they have exited your employment, or when they go for retirement. So such aspects have also to be taken into consideration when building legally compliant businesses that are willing to ensure that they exist in line with whatever the law says. We also have important aspects concerning compliance, that is the data privacy issues. Data is very important, and I have a friend who's currently doing her LLM masters in the UK on issues of data privacy. And what she always asks is the phone number that you are giving away, or the email address that you are providing a certain company upon its request, do you know where that information goes? Do you agree with the information that you are giving out being used for whatever reason the enterprise uses it for? So we have to be careful as business owners, as entrepreneurs, that whenever we collect information, how do we keep this information confidential? How do we ensure that the privacy of the information that we collect is guaranteed at all costs? And that is where we have to involve or be conversant with the Data Privacy Act, as well as other international standards regarding how we protect our customers' data. And data cannot only be considered to be the technical things. Like I said, your names, your ID number, phone numbers, that is important information that we have to ensure that we protect by all means. In our line of work, we use physical files to store clients' information. And you find some of our colleagues, when they're maybe taking pics online, also including in their pictures file names. The owner of that file can have his consent, the information, the names, phone numbers, email address, or any information that is displayed on top of the file without his consent. So we have to make sure that all the information that we collect from our clients, our customers, our suppliers, we have to ensure that we protect such information and use such information within the ambit of the law. Use it for legal means only, not anything else. But whatever you do that is not legal, there'll be consequences. We also have to make sure that we comply with the business permits and licenses that we obtain from the government. Could be our export, import permits, could be our trader's license. I have been speaking about business ID and trader's license separately, because the business licensing and registration laws, I think they were promulgated in 2019 or 2020, somewhere there. They have distinguished those two documents, that there are specific businesses that require special licenses, your liquor stores, or even some and licenses. Usually, the businesses that are in the trade and tourism industry require licenses for them to operate your restaurant, your hotels, or B&Bs. So we have to ensure that we comply with the law, because non-compliance, like I have already said several times, has serious consequences. And we wouldn't want to be one of those that do not comply. So in my experience, I've learned quite a lot about the common mistakes that businesses do. And as much as informal businesses have a huge contribution in the economy of the country, it's not advisable for you to operate a business unregistered if you want to be sustainable. You can operate your spaza shop without being sustainable if you just want a hand-to-mouth type of relationship with your business. But if you want to scale, you have to ensure that you register your business for you to be able to have your M-Pesa account, your bank account, your Budiba account, whatever whichever you may want to use. So people tend to have scalability and sustainability in mind without them registering or formalizing their businesses. And it's one of the mistakes that we have to avoid by all means. The second mistake we want to avoid is the one I talked about, verbal agreements. Verbal agreements are hard or difficult to prove before any forum. So you want to have something that you can refer to, even if it's not when a dispute has come up. Whenever you want to remind yourself maybe about your relationship, you know that you have to refer to, you have something to refer to, which is a written agreement. And another important mistake that we do as business owners is ignoring tax. I want to use the word ignore loosely because sometimes we want to seem to be compliant, but in reality, we are not. And this is not meant to bash any business, but most businesses in Lesotho currently, you find that they promise people quick fixes, cutting corners with the taxman to say, I can give you a tax clearance within an hour. And most of us don't even know what they are doing. And you find later on that in your tax registration account, nothing has been really happening. So it's going to have an impact, a negative one for that matter, in your sustainability as a business, in your reputation as a business. And as a business owner, you don't have to ignore such important information about your business. You have to know what the RSL demands. You have to know that what it means for you to have a tax clearance in your possession. So we have to make sure that we don't ignore such important information. We've seen over the years people being dragged for non-compliance with the tax laws, and people who have built empires, you find the taxmen coming and taking all their property, and it presents us with very sad situations. So we have to ensure that we avoid this mistake. And another mistake is us not protecting our intellectual property. Not only our trademarks, but our inventions and other intellectual property that's worth protecting. You have to consult your lawyer, you have to consult the law office in order for you to understand what type of protection your intellectual property will be suitable for your intellectual property. Another mistake that we normally do as business owners is hiring without contract. And I cannot stress this enough. because contracts are important. But most of us tend to have those gentlemen agreements with our employees and of the record. And one of those, sometimes I tend to take quite some time to draft employment contracts, but that is a problem that I and yourself have to fix in order for us to operate in a manner that will be suitable for everyone, all the stakeholders, the business, the employee, as well as everyone involved. So at this juncture, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to share just these few pointers as practical tips that will help us in operating our businesses and making sure that we are able to appreciate the essential legal aspects of operating our business. And the first one is that we have to keep written records. These written records may be those contracts. These written records may be other financial documents. Those written records may be the client's registers where you've collected clients' data. You have to make sure that you have those written records where you can even sometimes convert them to digital and somewhere in clouds or other platforms. Another important tip is that make sure that you consult professionals. Back then, in the 1967 Companies Act era, people who were trusted with issues concerning businesses or companies in Lesotho were primarily lawyers and accountants. But in this new era, since 2011, when there was an introduction of technology or the e-filing system, things were relaxed. But the relaxation has brought problems because it has opened floodgates of allowing everyone to give services, such serious services as advising or registering companies or even registering businesses for tax without proper qualifications and knowledge. So it's always advisable for us as business owners to approach the relevant professionals for consultations and guidance on how to deal with any aspects of our business. And another important tip that I'd like to share as part of our scaling and sustainability plan is to plan for growth. It's important for us to have our business plans as references for how we should conduct ourselves regarding our growth. I as an entrepreneur, putting aside the lawyer head, I always believe that we have to have proper plans in place that will allow us to follow strategically our goals or ambitions or aims as a company or business. So under the plans, we have to ensure that we have a proper structure. We have to ensure that our head, being the governance of our institutions or enterprises, are sound governing bodies or boards. And that is where we talk about corporate governance, ensure that we are compliant with most guidelines on how we should operate our businesses at governance level. And we also have to ensure that in our plans we have scaling structures. We have and we also have our projections in place, financial projections and the like. So planning for growth helps us in order for us to know what or where we want to go and what we have to use in order to get there. So it's important for us to plan our growth accordingly as businesses, for us to attain sustainability, which is the core of our aspirations as businesses. So another tip is using free legal resources. By free legal resources, I mean your articles, website, blog post, or even Facebook or social media posts from businesses such as Elegal Solutions, which regularly shares some snippets of information that helps you with issues of compliance and all other legal related matters within your business. You could also even employ the use AI resources such as ChatGPT, but make sure that you support the use of AI with backing it up with other sources, so that you ensure that it doesn't mislead you. So, ladies and gentlemen, I wouldn't want to take much of your time. I can take the whole day talking about the importance of the law, or knowing or being aware of the law and the legal aspects of operating a business. So at this juncture, I'd like us to have a few minutes for discussion, questions and answers, and maybe chat about our various experiences, so that we can have a bit of an interactive session. Thank you very much. Chris, are you there?
Advocate, thank you so much. That was very interesting. It was interesting in a sense that I normally, whenever I'm hosting such a webinar, I take time out to prepare my own questions, you know. And as you were presenting, I realized you are directly addressing majority of my questions. So I'm like, um, he really knows his stuff. So from
Thank you
compliance to
very much,
IP to contracts, everything you had it down. I'm just hoping there will be questions from our participants, whether it can be on Facebook Live or right here on participants joining us on Zoom. If you have any question, kindly just show me by a raise of hand, and then we'll give you a platform to ask Advocate Ntsiki a question, or you can just type it up in the chat. But while we are doing that, since we'd really like this to be very interactive, I had one question just to lay the foundation. A majority of our entrepreneurs that we work with as Rise International are mainly focused, as I said, in the built environment. Now they have their construction companies, their architecture firms, and they're still studying. Yes, they are. The vision is big, but they're starting small. Some of them have to hire daily laborers. So I was just wondering how important it is to have contracts for also daily laborers, or maybe say you're going to work with these people for 5 days. I need just some bricklayers for a building I'm currently working on just for this week. Is there some form of a contract there that can be applied?
Thank you, Chris. That's a very important question, because in most businesses you find that our roles are not clearly defined, and we also don't take into consideration the fact that you can work for a business without you necessarily being its employee. So when you have a contract in place, that defines, like I said earlier, your relationship to say, here is Thapelo Ntsiki. Thapelo is going to provide services to Elegal Solutions. In what capacity is he going to provide these services to this company? Is he coming to be an employee, or is he going to be a temporary worker, or is he going to be an independent contractor? So we have to ensure that we clarify those roles, which are able to inform us about the type of relationship or contract that we have to conclude between the business and that particular individual. So to answer your question, that it's important to have a contract that would clearly state that Thapelo is contracted on a temporary basis to perform services, bricklaying services, and it should also be clear that this is not an employment agreement, because some people tend to claim employment benefits and rights where such are not appropriate. Thank you.
I like that part where you are clarifying that there should be a difference between a temp and an employment contract, because sometimes it does get confusing for most people. Majority of our people in construction are really not savvy or aware of such differences. So sometimes you find they just hire people. But the other question that we have says, what should entrepreneurs look out for before joining, or rather before signing with clients or suppliers or even the landlord?
Thank you, Ndatu, for that question as well. I want to believe the entire agreement is worth scrutinizing. From the names, the date terms, as well as the miscellaneous part of the contract. So, but in order for us to say which parts are important, we should look at the core of our relationship. If we are talking about employment, we should look at the duties of the position that you've been hired for. You should look at the wage and how much the company is going to pay before signing. You should look at other important aspects such as leave days, maternity, and other maybe paternity leaves and the likes. But when we talk about employment contracts themselves, unlike other contracts, they have to be made in line with the Labor Act, because an employment contract cannot do away with an act, a right that has been created by the act itself. So whenever there's a clash between a contract and the act takes precedent. So it's a supplier contract. We have to ensure that we ensure quantity of the supply, how the services should be supplied, the SLAs, and many other important aspects concerning the core of that relationship. So once you've guaranteed that the core is covered, then the miscellaneous aspects of that contract are not really is difficult to understand.
Thank you so much, Advocate.
I hope I've
we have
addressed
another question.
that concern.
Advocate, are we
Yes,
still together? I thought you were breaking out there.
yes, I'm with you.
All right. Another question says,
Am I back?
how do you account to RSL, which is the Revenue Services Lesotho, when you haven't been keeping records from the beginning?
Usually, well, I'm not really qualified in this area. I just know issues concerning tax from a legal perspective. But in my experience, I have in instances where I wasn't filing accordingly or even keeping proper records, I submitted to the RSL nil returns. The proper professionals will have to advise you in that regard as to what to do. I wouldn't want to mislead anyone in this regard by addressing it according to my own experience. Yeah.
Well said, well said. I think that is already giving myself an idea for the next session. Probably we should get someone
Yes, definitely.
who is an
And I
expert
can also recommend someone who is well versed with this part of business.
I will definitely appreciate that. I will definitely appreciate that because I think that's another topic we need to cover. I saw a hand raised. Please go ahead and ask the question. If you can unmute yourself and ask the question. Okay. While they're getting ready to ask their question, for the benefit of time, Advocate, you mentioned in your presentation that people can, or rather, when you're giving tips, people can, be on the lookout for things like AI tools that they can use. I'm asking this because majority here we're addressing small entrepreneurs, we're addressing startups. Are there affordable legal services that they can utilize, or even mediation options available for startups? Because sometimes as a business, yes, you come across legal confrontations when you least expect them, especially when you're still starting up. Now you don't have the budget for lawyers, corporate lawyers, and now you have a situation in your hands. Maybe you messed up writing or getting a contract done. Now the laborer or an employee is now taking you to courts. How do we navigate that? These are startups, these are small entrepreneurs, and now there's a challenge of legalities on the other side. Yes, I understand we can utilize maybe ChatGTP, get advice here and there. Are there affordable legal services for such businesses?
Okay, thank you very much. You are raising important concerns and questions, Daddy, and I appreciate. Not to blow my employer's horn, but the only company that I know locally that provides affordable legal services and solutions is Elegal Solutions. And that is because my employer at some point did a study where we conducted or did a research about why small businesses are unable to access legal services. And we found out from the observations that we made that small businesses complained about it was a perception or reality actually that legal services are expensive, and secondly that quality legal services are expensive and are not found maybe all over Lesotho. Only quality legal services are found in Masiri. There is a saying that is commonly used by Basotho that yet he's leaving behind lawyers in Tabateka, in Mahalesuku, just because of the perception that the best lawyers are based in Masiri. So Elegal Solutions wanted to do away with all those misconceptions and myths, and even ideals that are not true, or even those that are true. We try to change the perspective in that we should provide affordable legal services targeting small business owners in Lesotho. We provide legal education activities, free legal education activities through our Molao initiative, where we hold workshops for small businesses and they access such services for free. And some of our initiatives, such as this engagement, where we share the awareness to small businesses, we believe that brings a lot of change in perception about the accessibility of legal services. And on our end, we want to promote such accessibility and inclusion in the legal services spectrum. Yes. No. So I hope I've answered you.
Advocate Ntsiki, I'm really, really, really appreciative of your time. I see we no longer have more questions. I am glad that you also got to talk about your employer, because that's part of the reason why we're also having this webinar, so that we exchange, we network, and we see where we can meet each other halfway. And I hope some of our fellows and pioneers here at Rise, even in general, Basotho entrepreneurs, startups, will start reaching out to Elegal Solutions to get some of this advice, because we really need education and advice. And you're really doing an amazing job with Molao le Kgwebo, which is another initiative that we need to applaud. Thank you so much. I remember you did mention that you will probably do us a favor and share some of the documents. Are you able to do that?
Yes, but I'll do that later on when I'm settled.
No problem. Thank you so much. I will make sure that when we share the recording of this webinar with our registered participants via email, we also attach those documents. That will be really awesome.
No problem, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us for this webinar. And we do apologize also again to starting a bit late and taking up a bit more time than we had communicated. Be on the lookout for more of our sessions. For next month, we'll be having another webinar. Already, I did mention that Advocate has given me an idea, to our next session. Maybe we'll go that route of getting someone from RSL to address some of these issues that have to do with business registration and compliance with RSL. We'll be sending this recording to everyone who joined us today, but please feel free to watch all our past webinars and get more education. We talked about finances, we talk about a lot of things on our YouTube page, which is Rise International. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, as well as LinkedIn, where we share a lot of information and a lot of opportunities to all our community members. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Thank you, Derek. Please enjoy yours too.
Thank you so much, top lawyer.